Solar Ash is the second game developed by Heart Machine, following Hyper Light Drifter. It's a third-person action-adventure game that focuses on movement and momentum, where you play as Ray, a void runner who has ventured into the Ultra Void, a supermassive black hole that is consuming her world. The Ultra Void that you explore has led to the very fabric of Ray's world breaking down, leading to some of the most extreme and striking environments I have seen in a video game. These environments defy what your brain thinks to be possible, encouraging you to keep exploring and seeing how the world has been deformed with your own eyes. Solar Ash is a streamlined experience, running for around 5 to 6 hours and not wasting any of the player's time or sticking around too long. Heart Machine have stayed committed to providing this experience, both through the gameplay and the story length, leading to a wonderfully curated game. Throughout the game you will escape from area to area, uncovering new information, characters and lore. The game will continually ask you, the player, to think about Ray's actions, as well as how far you will push Ray down her chosen path of destroying the Ultra Void, even though a lot of the game tells you not to. Solar Ash's main gameplay is skating around big open levels, using your speed to cleanly travel across the environment and kill any enemies that stand in your way. The world of Solar Ash has 6 of these levels, which all follow a rigid structure. You complete between 3 and 6 anomalies, which are these big goo things per level, and then you defeat the level boss, which is known as a Remnant. There are also several normal enemies scattered throughout the levels, who are actually designed really well. They each fulfill a different role, have different attacks and require a different approach to take down, which I was not expecting. It's not a particularly deep combat system, however this isn't the focus of the game, and so it's perfectly serviceable here. These anomalies that you find function as time trial sequences. You hit points along their body in an order until you can finally destroy its eye and clear the area. These anomalies did start to get a little dry towards the end of the game for me. Most of the time they're simply not that challenging or time consuming for me to get properly invested in them. Another big feature that I think Heart Machine missed out on here was the opportunity to further develop the levels by allowing new sections of the map to open up when certain anomalies have been destroyed. This did happen once to reveal a cool side quest companion, but I would have liked to see it more as a way of further developing the level for the player. Maybe it could have opened up to an additional upgrade or a neat shortcut between buildings in a level. Either way, the levels feel a little static gameplay wise as they don't develop in any way. This isn't awful, as the level design is excellent to begin with, as each level feels carefully handcrafted to push the player's abilities. This is more of a missed opportunity to further this experience. One possible point of confusion within the levels is that most of them have generic black goo for you to climb on, and these anomalies have the same goo, but this time it kills you if you stand on it for a couple of seconds. It does pulse when you touch it, however I think giving it a slightly different colour to distinguish between them wouldn't have gone amiss to avoid this problem. The remnants are essentially the same as the anomalies, however the size and scale of the experience has been bumped up significantly. Instead of maybe 5 points to hit in a row to kill the anomaly, each stage of the remnant could be up to 20, leading to a climactic finish where the remnant is destroyed. These remnants are introduced to you at the start of the open level, however they only become active once all the anomalies within that level are gone. Each remnant is broken down into 3 life points, and becomes more and more hazardous by removing the safe spaces for the player to run as their life decreases. This seriously ups the ante, and when paired with the amazing soundtrack for each remnant, it does lead to some tense moments and exhilarating finishes. One point I'm not so keen on is how the remnant's body instantly kills you when you touch it. I understand it's good to increase the threat compared to an anomaly, but too often this led to frustration due to one slightly poor or mistimed jump. I think decreasing the time the player could stand on the remnant would have been fine, maybe even just enough time for you to jump right away. In the current form, it led to a couple of frustrating moments from deaths which shattered the immersion and the flow generated when I felt like I really didn't do anything wrong. I also think it would have been more immersive if the remnant could act as a level hazard during the time you clear the anomalies. They currently lack any real substance or fear during the level, even though they're right there in front of you, and this would have been an interesting way to further develop both the level you're exploring and the fight you're building towards by including this earlier interaction. However, it was an active choice on Heart Machine's part to leave the remnant sleeping whilst you clear the anomalies around the level. This is probably to build tension for the big spectacle moment and battle at the end of the level when the remnant is woken up. However, I think this tension would have built far more effectively by having Ray battle and dodge the remnant throughout the level, and then finally take it down once and for all, leaving her free to explore at her own pace. By this point you're probably sensing a theme here with each aspect of the game. Solar Ash has a fantastic foundation for the experience but doesn't develop too much past this. Arguably the biggest offender in this regard is the character and gameplay progression. Whilst exploring these open levels, you pick up this pink substance called plasma. Now, after seeing this, I thought it would be a system to achieve two things. Number one, ensure the player has another reason to explore every nook and cranny of these beautiful levels. And number two, provide some mechanism for ability development to give Rey more depth in combat. However, imagine my surprise when the only thing that the plasma can be used for is to buy health upgrades. Yep, that's it. This problem is further compounded by a suit upgrade that then doubles any plasma you find, leading to a massive excess around World 4. As you can probably imagine, all motivation to keep picking plasma up is gone by that point, leading to a lot of the cool paths throughout the levels that are signified by the plasma trails being significantly less interesting. Your health does decrease by one segment per level, but this isn't ever as big a threat as it should be, since by the halfway point, as soon as it goes away, you can just buy it back. Given the amazing foundation that this game has, even just a couple of minor upgrades such as maybe a slam attack or a different move option would have kept me exploring and coming back to try and find what upgrades I could buy. I'm not asking for something as detailed as Ori and the Blind Forest, where these upgrades become the focal point of the exploration, more so just some way to build up the experience towards the latter half of the game and keep the player interested with new progression options. Also in each world, there are Void Runner caches which give you part of a suit upgrade and a piece of story information. I will cover the story information later, and you can only have one of these suit upgrades active at once, leading to some different choices being possible. One annoyance I do have is that the suit you find in the last area reveals all other Void Runner caches on your map. If you've been exploring each area fully, then this is likely the last suit upgrade you'll find, and therefore it's completely useless. So it feels as if you should have either not searched fully and then came back once you have this upgrade so that you can use it, or explore fully and then make this upgrade redundant. Neither of these choices are ones you want to consciously make as a player. However, one area of the game which is truly remarkable is the environment and level design. This is where most of the progression in Solar Ash comes from, with each world having a clear and well-defined art direction and design choices, tightly coupling both to create organic locations that make you feel as if the world is breaking down. This progression in environmental storytelling from world to world is absolutely brilliant. Each level paints the picture of the world unravelling, causing the environment to become twisted in these weird and wonderful ways. For example, this is the first level, which appears very mellow and open. When we then compare this scene to the second and fourth level, you can clearly see how much this influences the player's perception of how much it has been affected by the events and what is really going on in this world. This has allowed Heart Machine to experiment with how far they can push the boundaries of each level, making each one distinct and also a joy to run through. It also has a wider impact on the story, due to this being Rey's home that is disintegrating before her eyes, resulting in Rey losing her grip on the events happening in the world around her, slowly making her doubt everything she believes to be true, and causing her to become more and more desperate in her search for the truth. The story within Solar Ash develops in three ways: companions who you interact with through side quests, Void Runner caches which are collectibles you find throughout the world, and cutscenes between Rey and this character known as Echo. Only the cutscenes with Echo are mandatory, as they happen at the end of each level, with the other two being optional choices you can find around the level as you explore. The interactions between Rey and Echo mainly focus on Rey in the present, her decisions, her psyche, and how she is reacting to the events happening in her world. Echo repeatedly pushes back against everything Rey hopes to achieve, leading to visible tension between the two, and by extension you, the player. This dynamic pushes you to keep playing and searching for how they will resolve this. These interactions are beautifully paced, and leads to a perfectly crafted narrative with an expertly told final clash between them. The Void Runner caches explore the story of Rey's old crew, how they navigated this world and how they have disappeared. You meet 5 different crewmates where you mimic their path and figure out what events have happened to them. These crewmates provide more insight into Rey's character, and you really see and feel her care for these people that she has lost along the way. With these being optional, it really puts the onus on the player to go and find out what happened to those that came before Rey, adding background info that is not a necessity but furthers both the world building and Rey's character. The Void Runner caches are preset at each location for each specific point in that character's story, instead of them just delivering the next piece in whichever order you find them. Too often this led to me finding the conclusion to that character's story before I'd even got to know who they are and what they went through. When you go back and read these caches in order, they are brilliantly written and effectively convey the side character's feelings, even just through the text, which makes this point even more frustrating. There are also 3 side characters who are alive that you meet as you journey through the world. Each one tells a different tale of love, disappointment, and betrayal. Mostly, these side characters push Rey further down on her path of destroying the Ultra Void, contrasting nicely with the resistance she meets from Echo and the Void Runner caches. This constant turmoil and battle weighs heavily on Rey, making her even more distressed. Previously, all evidence apart from Rey's thoughts had been against destroying the Ultra Void, but including these stories of how much pain it has caused to the inhabitants of this world add a lot more gravity to Rey's decision, and which path she will go down. These side characters mimic the excellent writing shown in cutscenes with Echo and the Void Runner cache stories, really making you feel for the suffering they are going through and leading you to question what is the best way to stop their pain as quickly as possible. I had a couple of smaller points to add on to the end of the review, with the first one being that the voice acting for each of the characters is great and really conveys how that character is feeling and what their motivations may be. Given the short length of the game, I wasn't expecting much at all, but each of the characters has a distinct and memorable voice that is packed with emotion. The camera movement in this game is a little questionable at times. I think it may not necessarily be the camera's fault, more a case of the extreme environments twisting and turning. This meant I left one of my play sessions feeling quite nauseous, and so if this is something you struggle with, you may want to give it a miss. Despite Solar Ash's short runtime of around 6 hours, it is a story packed with feeling and passion from both Rey and all the characters you find along the way. The movement and traversal within the game are a joy to experience, and whilst the combat and progression leave a little to be desired, it is very much a game worth playing because the highs are so high and it has achieved exactly what Heart Machine set out to do. I hope the recently revealed Hyperlight Breaker manages to continue this success, and I know I will play that game purely because of how much I have enjoyed Solar Ash.